What if courage had an address? What if hope lived in the shadow of destruction, and faith stood tall where the world expected surrender? There is a strip of land by the Mediterranean Sea ancient, scarred, sacred. Every grain of its sand carries memory. Every wind that blows across it hums with stories of prophets and people who never gave up. This is Gaza, and you're watching core truth documentaries where hidden realities are brought into light. Before the drones, before the thunder of jets, Gaza was a mosaic of ordinary miracles. Morning sunlight spilled over whitewashed rooftops. The sea glittered like liquid glass. The call to prayer rose, not as noise, but as rhythm heartbeat of an old city that refused to stop beating. Shopkeepers rolled up shutters and sprinkled water on the pavement to cool the dust. Cafes came alive with the scent of Arabic coffee and cardamom. At schools, teachers greeted laughing children, chalk dust catching the sun like snow. Fishermen pushed their weather-worn boats into the blue, their sons waving from the shore. Inside courtyards, women kneaded dough for warm kubs. Radio songs of Mahmoud Darwish played softly in the background. Artists painted bright murals on gray walls of branches, white doves, verses of poetry. Even under siege, Gaza built beauty from limitation. Solar lamps crafted from scrap. Rooftop gardens rising above blockades. There was anxiety too, quiet but constant. Everyone knew peace here was fragile, a glass pane between two storms. At night, people could hear distant engines in the sky, the mechanical hum that reminded them the world beyond the wall was armed and awake. Yet faith steadied them. Tomorrow will be better, fathers told their children. God sees us, mothers whispered into tiny ears. Then came the night that shattered lullabies. One explosion split the silence, then another. 10, hundreds. Windows broke like crystal rain. Children ran barefoot through corridors of dust. Gaza, the city of light, was thrown into darkness. The storm had begun. Before dawn, the missiles came again, louder, closer. Hospitals overflowed, power lines snapped, water stopped running. Gaza became a maze of dust and sirens. Israel called it Operation Cast Lead. For Gazans, it was the night the stars disappeared. Doctors worked by flashlight. Children were carried through rubble wrapped in blankets that used to be curtains. Radio hosts read out names until their voices broke. And still, the outside world debated words like proportionate. But compassion has a way of sailing through distance. In cities across the world, ordinary people refused to watch in silence. They gathered food, medical kits, and courage, and loaded them onto ships. Their mission was simple yet dangerous. Break the blockade and deliver hope. They called it the Freedom Flotilla. 9 vessels, hundreds of volunteers. One idea, that humanity should not need permission to care. Tiled ship, Mavi Marmara, carried activists, journalists, and faith leaders from more than 40 nations. They sang on deck, prayed together, and believed the world might listen if they reached Gaza's shore. But on the last night of May 2010, helicopters roared above them in international waters. Commandos descended, gunfire cracked. 9 civilians died that night, a 10th later, from his wounds. Their ship never reached Gaza, yet its story reached every corner of the earth. Protests erupted from Istanbul to Jakarta, London to Los Angeles. The words "Free Gaza" were painted on walls, whispered in prayers, printed on banners. For many, the flotilla proved something powerful. Even when governments hesitate, conscience can still set sail. And somewhere, thousands of miles away, one man watched the news footage and quietly began to ask questions. Questions that would change everything. His name would soon echo in unexpected places. But not yet. When the bombing stopped, the silence that followed was almost cruel. Streets lay in ruin. Hospitals were empty of supplies. The blockade grew tighter. The world promised investigations. Tin Mobidon. The speeches faded. The aid slowed. The suffering continued. But the people did not surrender. In every corner of the globe, hearts beat in rhythm with Gaza. Students painted campus walls with its flag. Church choirs and mosques collected donations. Jewish, Christian, and Muslim activists linked arms in protest, shouting the same word, justice. And yet, in the high offices of politics, silence was policy. Trade deals mattered more than human lives. Governments issued balanced statements that balanced only their own interests. Still, one voice began to rise above the noise, measured, thoughtful, persistent. A senator from Pakistan. He was known for scholarship, for moral clarity, for the rare ability to speak truth to power. But his name was not yet widely known. In interviews, he appeared briefly, warning that the world was looking away from its own conscience. Then he disappeared again, back into research, back into questions few dared to ask. Who benefits when wars never end? Who writes the stories that reach our screens? Who profits when empathy fades? The senator's inquiries led him toward uncomfortable answers, and though his findings were not yet public, whispers began to spread about documents, about networks, about a truth too dangerous to reveal. Years have passed since the night the sea turned red. The world remembers the images, the ships, the lights in the dark, the cries for help fading into static. But the story of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla did not end on the deck of the Mavi Marmara. It began there. What those activists carried across the Mediterranean was more than food or medicine. They carried a question: can humanity still reach the places politics forbids? That question echoed far beyond the waves. It reached universities, parliaments, and the quiet corners of people's hearts. In the years that followed, the flotilla became a symbol sung about in Turkey, studied in South Africa, prayed for in Malaysia, whispered about in Washington. Memorials were built for those who died. Children in Gaza still draw ships on classroom walls, coloring them bright blue and white. To them, those vessels were angels that tried to arrive. Yet, even as compassion rose, so did confusion. Official reports conflicted. News anchors changed the language. Raid became incident. Attack became clash. Truth was blurred, rewritten, and repackaged, until even empathy sounded political. Someone, somewhere, was shaping the story, and that is where another story quietly begun far from the sea. In a distant country, a senator watched the footage of the flotilla again and again. He studied every angle, every report, every witness, testimony. He noticed details others ignored. The timing of the radio signals, the missing segments of recorded audio, the diplomatic cables that arrived too late. The senator was not a journalist, not a soldier. He was a thinker, a believer in conscience as a form of power. But after that night, something changed in him. He began to ask questions, not about what happened, but about why the world reacted as it did. Who benefited when the outrage faded? He traveled quietly, meeting survivors, lawyers, and former crew members of the flotilla. He listened. He took notes. He compared timelines. Bit by bit, he began to see patterns: financial patterns, political patterns, narrative patterns. It seemed the flotilla had collided not just with a navy, but with an entire machinery of perception. Somewhere in Geneva, a human rights lawyer handed him a set of confidential papers. Shipping manifests, diplomatic memos, insurance agreements that hinted at coordination between unexpected actors. Later, in Istanbul, a survivor told him about unmarked drones circling hours before the raid, something never admitted in official statements. The senator collected these fragments like pieces of a riddle no one wanted solved. The deeper he went, the more he realized the flotilla was not just an episode. It was a turning point. It exposed a global nervous system built on fear, profit, and control of information. It revealed how compassion could be managed, outrage predicted, solidarity neutralized. To understand Gaza, he decided, you must understand what sank in those waters. And so he began compiling what some now call the flotilla, files, hundreds of pages of correspondence, transcripts, and financial ledgers connecting governments, defense contractors, and media consultants. No one knows how complete his archive is, or where he keeps it. Some say encrypted drives hidden across continents. Others whisper about a vault in Istanbul. He rarely speaks publicly, but when he does, his words are careful, almost coded. He says, The sea remembers. Every current carries truth. Journalists try to reach him. Most fail. Those who succeed describe a man calm, deliberate, but carrying the weight of secrets larger than himself. He never confirms his identity. Somecholim. Asterisk. The senator from the east. Asterisk. Others think the name is symbolic, a mask for many working together. Whatever the truth, his investigations have unsettled powerful people. Reports, surface of meetings cancelled, interviews pulled, archives suddenly classified. International agencies quietly distance themselves from the topic, calling it sensitive. And still, he continues, why does he care so deeply about a flotilla that sailed years ago? Because for him, it represents the exact moment when conscience tried to break a blockade. The world punished it because those ships carried not only aid, but evidence of our collective choices. Because, perhaps, he knows that the flotilla's real cargo was truth itself. Today, in Gaza, fishermen still sail small boats patched with wood and wire. When they look toward the horizon, they say they can still feel the spirit of those ships. Their courage floating somewhere beyond the naval patrols, and somewhere far from that horizon, the senator watches, waiting. He says the truth is almost ready, that the world is not yet prepared to see what the documents reveal. No one knows when he will speak or if he ever will. But whispers grow louder, that the evidence he holds connects the blockade's economics, intelligence operations, and a media campaign designed to rewrite memory itself. If released, it could reshape not just Gaza's history, but the world's understanding of how information becomes power. Who is this man? What did he discover in the wake of the flotilla? And why does every path that seeks truth seem to lead back to him? The answers lie ahead in our next episode, The Senator's Files. There, we follow the trail from the decks of the Mavi Marmara to the corridors of influence, where wars are justified before they are fought. A story where the waves of the Mediterranean meet the tides of politics, and where one man's search for truth could rewrite everything we know about courage, control, and Gaza. This is Core Truth Documentaries, where facts have voices and courage has no borders. Stay with us. The sea still has secrets to tell.